This is video file 3 for Tom Hughes. So I'm going to just talk about there's as well as rising damp, there's also penetrating damp that is penetrating around and at the chimneys, at the central chimney and at the north chimney in particular. Now you can see here in this photograph there's a large crack in the render. A very large crack in the render. There may even be cracks in the render up here. Now, so the chimney would need to have repair work done on it to repair the crack and to stop dampness penetrating. So this is a cement render, and basically the cement render will trap moisture, but the cement render does create a barrier for rainwater to get in. But if there are large cracks in the render, as there are here, what can happen then is rainwater will get, effectively, it'll almost be sucked into the chimney, because if the chimney is dry and it's moist out here, it'll suck the rainwater in. But the problem is, because it's got a cement render on it, it then won't dry out. It will actually hold the water, retain the water, and the water will go down the chimney and cause massive dampness inside, which it has done. I'll show you on the next page. Like over time you can see all of the dampness. This is bedroom 1 here, as I've called it in my plan diagram. The hallway is out here, and you can see all of the moisture there that's come through, and that's another photograph of the same chimney. You can see all the moisture that's come through. So it will be possible to prevent the rainwater coming in, but some work will need to be done on the chimney to seal up this gap. Also, when it's re-roofed, it'll stop any driving rain penetrating. There may also be rainwater penetrating through cracks at the top, so it can be repaired, but there needs to be work done on the chimney. Now, this is the north gable. There's also significant cracking in the top coping to the gable wall at the rear. You can see there's cracking here and cracking here, which will allow rainwater to penetrate. Now, an internal view of this area here, if we look internally, you can actually see that a lot of the lime pointing, or the lime mortar, is missing in this area. And I don't know why that's happening, or why that happened. Possibly this area was damaged at some point during building of the extension or something, but that's the reason for most of this movement. But that can be repaired. That can all be repointed during renovations and repaired. This is another internal view of the north wall. So you can see the staining there. That's typical staining from the use of a chimney, but there's dampness here. You can see it on the floorboards there. You can see the outline of the dampness there. So there's moisture coming in at the north gable, driving rain penetrating through the large gaps in the tiles, so that will need to be re-roofed. And then there may also be cracks in the wall where rainwater is penetrating, but all of that can be repaired, and those gaps can be sealed. Now, this one here, so I just want to show you, this is a typical problem throughout the property. You've got rising damp. Now, I spoke about this in the first video, the causes for the rising damp. And the causes for the rising damp are basically, you've almost got a level threshold here from internal to external. So dampness can penetrate, there should really be a 6-inch drop from inside to outside, which will help prevent dampness getting into the property. Now, it may or may not, you may not be able to create this 6-inch drop at the front. You may be able to, you may not be able to. But one of the things you could do, as I mentioned earlier, was to provide a French drain around the front. Now, you would probably have to place the drain fairly close and fairly tight to the building, because it is a public footpath here, so you can't push it out too far. So you would probably be keeping it closer to the building, as one of the examples in video 1 showed, where they had a French drain very close to the building. So you'll need to have an engineer out just to put some thought into that, and to see how he might work that, whether he might be able to change the levels. He should be able to put in a French drain, which is the most important thing. And the other thing is the cement render, that also prevents the wall from breathing. So you could take off the cement render, put on a lime wash if you want, and all of those things should help prevent this dampness from reoccurring when the building is renovated. So again, you have a similar problem with the rear door, where there really is only about a 50mm drop in level from internal level to external level, or it's probably even flush in a lot of areas. And ideally what you'd want to do is you'd want to drop the levels around the outside by 6 inches. Now, the other area here is this is the south gable wall, and there is this sort of there's a wall built here. It's tight to the adjacent property. This wall here, I'm not sure what it was originally used for. If we go on and look at another photograph, that's the wall there, and there's just sort of vegetation in there. There is a small hole in the wall to allow moisture to evaporate, or to allow so that this area doesn't collect water. But this wall is effectively going to and the vegetation, it's going to keep this area moist and damp. What I would like to do during the renovation would be just to remove this wall and to continue the French drain all the way around the perimeter of the building. You might even be able to lower the levels in this area slightly to try and get that 6-inch drop that I talked about. And this may or may not be possible. You're very close to the neighbouring boundary here. But I would remove this wall, because I think that's going to, and the vegetation, they're both going to kind of retain moisture in the area, which is then, ideally, I suppose, which is what we should do, is to stop the moisture getting into the building at all. So you keep it as dry as you can on the outside. And what a lot of people do, which is the wrong way to go about it, is they tank the wall on the inside, but they don't try and remove the moisture from the outside. So the first thing you do is you remove the moisture from the outside by dropping the level, putting in the French drain, possibly taking off the cement render and putting on a lime render. And all of those things should help. Now again, at the back here, there's this drum of water which was basically put there to collect rainwater from the gutter. So that's full, so every time it rains it's going to overflow, and that will keep that area saturated. That will again, moisture will then propagate into the dwelling. And this is an internal view of this south wall. So there is moisture there. There possibly even is moisture coming down through the chimney. But there's going to be penetrating damp up here anyway. It was all quite moist. This here is what I've called bedroom number 2 in my plan diagram. This is now that's a cement render on the internal wall. You don't often get cement renders on internal walls like that, but he put a cement render on it. I'm not sure why they've done that. Again, the cement render traps moisture. If there's moisture in the wall, it traps it in there, and it kind of stays moist. This is the rear wall of bedroom 2. You can see now this kind of dampness, it's too high to be rising damp. That's definitely not rising damp, because the rising damp generally only comes up about 1.2. Generally, it might come up a bit higher, but I would have said it's penetrating damp. Because there also seems to be penetrating damp around the window. Now, that's a close-up view of the window there, and you can see the penetrating damp around the window. Incidentally, all of the windows are single glazed, so that won't help. So there's single glazed aluminium everywhere. Now there's double glazing in the doors, the front doors, but all of the windows were single glazed. So this is a view of the same area externally. So if we try and think about where the moisture is coming in, it's not immediately obvious where the moisture is coming in. There may be, gaps in the tiles where the moisture is getting in sitting on the top of the wall and then permeating down through the wall. There doesn't seem to be any cracking in the wall where rainwater can readily kind of come through. But one of the ways this is finished here, which is slightly unorthodox, is the roof rafters project out 50mm past the wall. And oftentimes what people will do is they'll finish them flush and they'll put a board on it, like a fascia board. But in this instance, there's no fascia board. So it's possible that moisture can just hit the rafters and then soak in around the rafters, where the rafters meet the moisture. So rainwater can soak in and again, because it's a cement render, the wall can't breathe, it can never dry out. So it's not a great detail this year. But there's a moisture problem there. So now if I go on then and talk about the extension. So I'm going to stop this video here because it's about 10 minutes long, and I'll continue on in the next video.